Do people worry too much about duplicate content?
Well, Google is certainly getting more clever, that's for sure. In some cases they should worry, yes, but in many cases they shouldn't. From my experience at least, you should think about how you deal with it from an ROI point of view. So if you have a problem and then evaluate if the impact of fixing the problem has greater benefits than it actually costs to do. So that might be a thing that you might look into, but in most cases I think Google is getting more and more clever about it, how they deal with duplicate content and how they deal with content ownership.
If people steal your website content, what actions can you take?
Well, in this session I mentioned specifically, with a couple of companies specifically in mind, they were creating new websites on a development URL. And they were creating a lot of content about destinations, travel destinations in one case, and then the other case was an e-commerce website with a lot of product information. And in both of these cases, we could see that somebody sniffed out these development URLs and literally scraped the website of the content. So months before they opened the website, somebody else was actually using their content and taking ownership of it. And how can you deal with that? Yes, I would recommend that if you want to create a website, firstly, make sure that nobody else can access it except for the core team that looks at it, like closing down the dev website. But if for some reason you are a victim of content being stolen, report it to Google. Google has a form that you can fill out, and in many cases that I know of personally, Google has actually dealt with it quite well. So Google wants to know if somebody is stealing content from you. So use that. If you are syndicating content through RSS, for example, or something like that, make sure that it doesn't get syndicated until maybe 5 minutes after you have distributed it. So you might have a news website which has RSS feeds, and make sure that when you are syndicating content that you actually have ownership for the content before you distribute it. So press release is a good sample of that. So you might have websites like MarketWire or whomever it is where you distribute it and it gets indexed by Google like this, but your website might be slower. So if you want to own the press release and get ranked for it, then distribute it there to begin with. Wait until you know it's being ranked or it's being indexed, and then distribute it. But of course, there's a balance, and you have to think about where is the impact the greatest. Is it on MarketWire or is it on your website? So again, all about valuation and understanding how Google is crawling and finding content.
Crystal ball gazing, where do you think SEO is headed over the next few years? Do you have any predictions what you think?
Yeah, this is a question that comes up regularly, and one of my favorite answers to this is an answer that a woman called Sherry Thorough gave in 2004. I have a conference every year in Iceland called RIMK, and she was one of the first speakers, like Chris Sherman, and her coming over, a guy called Michael Holland who created MSN Messenger, I think. But she was asked this question, where do you see this going? And she said, well, it's not about SEO per se, it's about the content, it's about the stuff that we're putting out there. And as soon as we learn that the content that we write impacts search, and then we're not reusing it, or we're not lazy in creating it, and we create a proper site architecture, that we have the basics in place, then we're fine. And that answer applies still today. 10 years later, or close to, it still applies. And I believe that the core thing to all of this is that if we do our websites properly, if we create proper content, unique good content, if we tag stuff like images and things like that, we're in good shape. Nothing's going to change that in the near future, at least.
Do you have any blogs that you read that you'd recommend for other people, or possibly any books that you'd recommend for people wanting to learn more about SEO?
In the old days, I used to have many blogs bookmarked, and websites like State of Search, Search Engine Strategies, and all these websites. I'm starting to count more and more on Twitter to give me stuff. If I find interesting stuff, and I use Twitter a lot to listen to what's happening out there.
Where can people get in touch with you or find out more about your company?
Well, they can Google my name. I'm the only person in the world that is named Kristján Már Hauksson. That's always good. Yeah, I have a Twitter handle which is Optimize Your Web, I've published a couple of books about internet marketing, one in Icelandic, which is fun to read if you don't read Icelandic. But the other one is in English, Global Search Engine Marketing. Yeah, just Google my name. I'm the only person in the world that is called or is named Kristján Már Hauksson.
Okay, Kristján, thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you for having me.